as with most Fridays, I try to do a movie that is like direct to streaming. I like to try to do the big ones at very least. So I saw this one this morning, and I was like, okay, I might as well watch it. It looks funny. I had high hopes. But before we talk about The Bubble, I just want to say that we have a podcast now. It's called Nate and Robert STS, and you can find it on Spotify or Apple, or you can click the links down below in the description, and it'll take you right there. Please support us if you are interested in that. We just shoot the shit. That's why it's called STS. We shoot the shit. It's kind of funny. We just chill and relax and have fun. So join us if you're interested. We'll have another episode later on today. We'll have another episode up there, so feel free to check that out in the spare time. But right now we're going to talk about The Bubble. The Bubble was released in 2022. It was written by Judd Apatow and Pam Brady and directed by Judd Apatow. No spoilers, but the general idea of this Netflix original film is it's about quarantine, like the pandemic, like the coronavirus pandemic specifically. And they're making a movie, and they're trying to make a movie within the bubble that they can't leave for fear of getting the virus to everyone. That's the whole plot of the film. I mean, it gets a little bit more complicated than that, but like I don't want to spoil anything because there is spoilers. There's definitely things that you could spoil in this film. But that is the general idea. And I will say that somehow I felt almost like offended in the first like 20 minutes. I don't think offended is the right word. I can't find the right word. I spent the rest of the movie trying to think of the word. But like they were just like, they weren't making fun of the virus more so than like they were making fun of how we were reacting to the virus. I think that it's fair to critique it, and I think it's fair to talk about it. It needs to be talked about, but it doesn't feel real. It feels like a joke about something that isn't really happening when it really is. And I get that that's kind of the point, but it didn't sit well with me. But my main issue is that the pandemic isn't even the main focus of the film. It's like that's what gets them into the setting of the film. The real problem is like everyone's relationship with everyone. Like there's a bunch of romances going on, and people hate each other, and they're stuck in this room, you know? And that's understandable, but I did wish they focused a little bit more on the pandemic as a whole and made a serious comedy instead of just an overall comedy. Because I think that there were a couple moments where you felt something, you know, there's like a little bit of heart here. And they didn't play around with that a lot. I think that they could have, and if they did, it might have made the movie a little bit elevated for me. But it really is just a straight comedy with just a couple glimpses of like, I kind of feel something, and I really wish that they resonate with me a little bit more. So I think if they took a little more time to develop the characters and make them have these relationships actually meaningful instead of just making it a comedy, I think it would have been a little bit more successful for me. But as a comedy, I mean, most of the jokes didn't hit. There were a couple jokes that hit, but like they were, I chuckled like twice. Like I like actively was like ah ha 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 twice. And one of them was for a cameo, and one of them was because Keegan-Michael Key just did like double backflips out of a room, and like that was it. But like the jokes, like the actual written jokes, don't work very well for me, and I can't really decide why, because I think the performances were all around pretty good. I think Karen Gillan was pretty darn good. Iris Apatow was incredible, and I really liked Keegan-Michael Key in this as well. But like, all the actors were good. It's a star-studded cast. The cameos are funny as hell. But, like, it lacked beef. Like, they must have written this really fast. Like, they literally must have sat down and, like, we're going to write a movie in 20 minutes. Let's write this down. And it's funny. Like, there are a couple moments where I'm like, yeah, I get it. That's kind of funny. But for the most part, it does lack comedy, which is a problem when it is only a comedy. But if they had some heart in there, it might have actually elevated the film a little bit more and made the comedy seem funny. I think that a lot of filmmakers nowadays, when they're making comedies, don't appeal to our hearts. They don't appeal to our actual feelings. They just want to try to make us laugh. And that's great. I appreciate that. But also, I'm going to laugh more if there are also dark and serious times in the film. And there just weren't any. My second problem, I think, was continuity. And that is, they're making this children's film, or so they say. But then there's, like, penises, and then there's swearing, and I'm like, and then they'll go back like it's a kid's film, and I get it, maybe it's a joke. It didn't work for me. It just broke the continuity for me. Like I didn't believe it. And there's a scene in a helicopter, and I bet this scene was really hard to film, to be fair, but they would do jump cuts, and they're not really jump cuts technically, but they would do jump cuts from like the back seat to the front seat, and then as soon as they did that, you would see that what's happening in the back seat is not what's happening anymore. They just forgot to continue acting in that period of time, which I would normally think is fine if they were doing it as part of the film that they're making in the film, but it's part of the regular film, like it's part of the bubble, and it felt like he didn't realize there was a continuity error there, which is certainly possible. I think it goes down to editing, which is bad. I think the editing is just bad. That's just where it's at. But, like, I don't know, the movie is still enjoyable for a one-time watch. I don't see me revisiting this movie at all. I would have been pretty upset if I'd paid money to see this in a movie theater. But for a Netflix original film, it's funny, I guess, and, like, it's star-studded for sure, and it does critique the coronavirus pandemic, and particularly what we are doing about it. Not necessarily in the most tasteful way, I would say, but it's not in, like, an unrealistic way. It's complicated, because we all have different experiences with COVID, and, like, I didn't really experience what they're experiencing, but there was one montage where, like, they're stuck in a room for, like, 2 weeks, and I did relate to that very much. So I felt like that was, it was well done, but then they moved away from the pandemic immediately. Like, the first half hour is probably about the pandemic, and then the rest of the film, which, by the way, is over 2 hours long, holy crap, is they stray away from the coronavirus pandemic, and they go to, like, relationships and stuff, and that makes sense if it wasn't a movie about the pandemic. So I don't really understand what they were trying to go for here, but the movie itself is a little sloppy, but it is funny at times with a great cast. I'm gonna go ahead and give The Bubble a D+. Have you guys seen The Bubble? Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about it. It is on Netflix right now, so feel free to check that out if you're interested. I know some people are going to love this film. I mean, Judd Apatow is a great filmmaker, so hopefully you can find things to like in this film. And there are many things to like. It's just the quality of the things that I liked didn't outbeat the quantity of the things that I liked. So I was hoping for a little bit more from Judd Apatow here, but that's okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Please consider subscribing if you aren't already, because it helps me out a whole lot. I put a lot of work into these and time, so please consider doing so, and also check out my podcast. Link in the description below. I always want to say bio because I watch TikTok a lot, but it's in the description. So go check that out if you are interested at all. And thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.